Hello. Uh, okay, today we're gonna try to explain how to set up a ddns for a home camera. What means a ddns is a dynamic DNS, which is domain name service for a home camera, which means, for example, you have a special camera, you have a personal camera, you need to watch your camera from outside. How would you set up this to get your camera visible from outside, from your office or anywhere via internet? First of all, we need to explain how this system works. Okay, how the DNS works. The first thing to know is that your modem, every time you make your connection, your ISP, which is the internet service provider, will assign a new IP address, which is not usually the same, and often it's a different IP address which is affected to your modem. So what happens is that from outside you can no longer access to your system, since the IP keeps changing every time you get connected. So what's gonna happen is that from a standard DNS, the name is converted to an IP address, which is usually fixed IP address, public address. In this case, your ISP will allow several addresses. Let's explain also how this system works. Alright. Let's say the ISP has several. This is the IP addresses. It is kind of four numbers separated by dots. Say, for example, he has 54 IP addresses. The 0 is not used, and 255 is not used too also. So it's possible for him to allocate numbers IP address from 1 to 254. The question is, in our case, for example, the ISP has got, for example, it's possibility to have 1000 users who may get connected to the ISP, not at the same time, but how will he assign these addresses to more than 254 clients? What happens is that the ISP has got a system which is called a DHCP, which is the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which allocates dynamically the IP addresses to every time a user get connected. How does it work? For example, user 1 gets connected to the ISP, and system will allocate him these IP addresses starting from 1. This guy has a lease, for example, for 24 hours, which means that this IP address is leased for 24 hours. After 24 hours, user needs to reallocate the IP addresses. In case the user gets disconnected and does not reconnect for a while, if another user gets connected, he may have the same address allocated to him, since it's no longer used. So the DHCP allocate addresses dynamically every time this IP address will change, depending on who is getting connected. So that's why when you get connected to the internet, your IP addresses keeps changing. How can you get the information about your IP addresses? You just Google system and say, for example, what is my IP? This kind of sites, for example, this one, www.whatsmyap.com.fr. Okay, so this system will give you your IP address automatically. So let's get back to our system. So the ISP will give you dynamic IP addresses every time you get connected. It's most of the cases your IP addresses will be reallocated to someone else, so you won't be able to get the same IP addresses. So from outside you won't be able to get connected to your system or your home with the public address, since it keeps changing. So the solution is that with the ddns, which is a public service, you for sometimes you get some free service when you can uh, sign up for maybe for 3 days for free, or some sites they give you the free service. Anyway, it's not really expensive. So the first thing is that your modem, what's gonna happen is that your modem, each time it gets connected, it gets a new IP addresses. So your modem or your system will send to the ddns service its new IP address, which says I have been charged in I have a new connection, I have a new IP address, so please record my new IP addresses. The system will keep this address in the records, and every time a remote user will try to connect to this system, it uses the public name. The public name will create a request to the ddns service, which get back an IP address, the new dynamically assigned the IP addresses, and in this case you will get connected through the new IP. So whatever the IP address is, whenever it changes, it doesn't matter, since the remote user will use the public name, which is translated or is resolved by the ddns system, and you get connected to your modem, which is from outside. And something else will happen here is that what we call the port forwarding, which means that the public IP address is assigned to the modem, not your camera. Your camera has a local IP address, usually 192.168.1 dot something. And how will you connect your camera through your modem? The modem will have some kind of configuration which is called port forwarding, which means every time you try to connect to, say for example, the port 80, which is the HTTP port, the modem will forward your 80 port trams to the camera through the local IP, which looks like you are connecting to the public IP address to the camera, even though it has a local IP address, but the modem will do this work. And most of the local modems are using this system, whatever it is, D-Link or TP-Link or whatever the brand. So basically that's how the ddns works. And now let's get to the configuration, how to configure the DNS service and the modem. We have two parts to do. Basically the camera has nothing to do, remote user, and all the work will be done in the modem and in the DNS service. So let's get started and use start configuration the DNS service. Okay, so first thing, I'm gonna use the no IP site, which is relatively free system for up to 3 hosts. The only thing is you need every 3 days to reallocate this system, but as long as every 3 days you reaffirm your hosts, it keeps being free. Okay, so let's just create you need to create a free account. As I say, it's www.noip.com. Okay, let's say .com. Okay, already news, because I did create previously an account. So basically what you need to do is to put your email and here a username, a password, and you select a host name, and I will use the ddns.net. This is the name that you will access from outside. For example, you say my camera will be mycamera.ddns.net. So as long as I did create an account, I'm gonna sign in U2 go for G and blah. Okay. Okay, here we are. And so, as I said, you got 3 hosts for free, and you need to reallocate every 30 days. So let's explain the option how to do it. I have previously created one record for hosts, and let's say here you have the host names. Okay, so I will need to add a new host name. I'm gonna call it U2 go for G. It's gonna be .ddns.net. So this is my actual IP address. I can change it later. Okay, expires in 30 days. I see free hosting expires every 30 days, so you can upgrade to enhanced account, which will be not you need to pay, and every 30 days you need to log on and to reallocate your hosts. You don't need to reconfigure everything, just say that I'm still there. They want to make sure that everybody is using the records, otherwise they will be disabled. Okay, here it's the record type, which is A. It's about 30 days. You can modify every time your IP addresses, and the device config. You can create also groups, which is not needed for this demonstration. Let's say the device configuration assistant. First of all, you need to create the host name, which is I already did, youtuber.g.ddns.net, or you add new or use the actual name. Okay, let's say it next. Alright, what router are you using? Router, which basically is your modem. The modem basically right now, actually all the modems are also on routers. So you select the your modem brand, say TP-Link or D-Link or other. Basically I'm using the D-Link, so you can choose other, and you select the type and the device. Say for example D-Link, and you type for example camera or wherever you want. D-Link, for example DVC 1000, or you choose the brand of your device and hit next. Alright, is there a computer always running on your network? What does it mean? This is related to the dynamic update clients. So what does it do? You have, let's get back to the picture here. As I said, every time you get a new IP address, since you get a new connection, say the next day, the ISP will allocate you a new IP address. So how this modem will inform the DNS service that it has a new address? So what's gonna happen? You got two options. First option is that you need to have a computer always running on your office or your home. Basically you need to keep it on, which is will host the small utility, which is the dynamic update client. It's a small software, will be running on your computer and keeps updating the DDNS public service with your new IP addresses. It's a small program that will keep informing the service that I have a new address, I have a new addresses. It doesn't do anything else. So if you don't want to have this kind of service, you don't want to mobilize or make computer with all these softwares, or you don't have a computer that you need to keep always on, you can configure your modem. Most of the modems have an option where you can activate with a ddns, and they will ask you for the credential, which means the account. You give him, for example, I say no IP, service no IP, my username, my address, and my host, and the modem will automatically log into your site with the username, password to the site, and it will update your DDNS records. Let's say just that, for example, if you have a D-Link modem, it will use the D-Link DDNS service. If you have a TP-Link, it will use the TP-Link service. Some other modems will work with several services. It depends on the brand of your modem. Let's keep this for later. We explain how to use these options. So if you have a computer always on your network, say yes, and it will ask you to download the dynamic update clients. Okay, for this case, let's say no to see how to configure the modem. Alright, next question. Can you log on to your router? Which means you have access to your router, your modem. You have a username, password to configure. Basically, you should. Okay, yes. Alright, it gives you step 1. Log on to your router. Follow the steps in this guide to set up and configure your router's DNS settings. Set up DNS. It's a small guide to explain you how to configure the D-Link. So every time you select, for example, here a different brand of, if you say, for example, Huawei, it will give you a different guide, another guide to explain you how to use how to configure the port forwarding. Let's get back. Yes, okay. So I don't need the guide, since I'm going to show you how to configure your modem. Next step. This is how to configure your modem. Log onto your device, click Network Advanced, copy number list and a port HTTP field, which is basically different from one modem to another. Okay, hit next, and this will ask you the port that the system will log on. This is where I told you about this one. Okay, you can change it. Port 80 is the publication port, which is basically 80, but you can change it. You can make it 8080 or whatever you want. Okay, so let's keep it. You have another option which means check port 80. What does it do is that this system, the NoIP server, will check your system if you have the port 80 which is open or not. So if I make check, since I have a firewall on my computer, it will say that the port 80 is not open. So whatever, say port is not open because of my firewall. Okay, skip this step, and has been successfully configured for hostname, must be configured every 30 days via email. Don't want to risk losing your connection. Alright, so it's confirmation via email. Okay, I think we are done here. We have our host name, which is configured. We just need to get back here to make sure the dynamic update. Here, no dynamic update detected. So we need to configure the method to make sure this will go away and says update successful. In this case, you can make sure that this system is running correctly. Okay, so now let's get to the modem configuration, and we'll be back to this option. Okay, let's get to the modem router part. Here I have a D-Link, as you can see, a modem router, which is also an EDSL modem, and it has also a wireless connection. Basically what it does is you can have a DSL connection with a small switch with 4 ports, a wireless access point, and inside we have a small router with a small firewall. So what we're going to do is, for anyone who's got a modem router, whatever it's D-Link or TP-Link or Huawei or any brand, basically it does the same thing. What we're going to do is to connect to the modem to make some small configuration. How we're going to do that is to access the modem via HTTP web navigator. So how we're going to do is the access. If you see the back of the modem, you can see the IP address here and the username and the password. It has a default username and default password and default IP address. If no one has changed or messed with the config, you can probably access the modem with this default configuration. If you have something that has been used, you can try the reset button to reset to factory defaults. But if you do that, you will lose any previous configuration. So I rather use the basic config with the IP address and the username and the password, which is on the back of the modem. So let's get to the navigator, and we connect a network cable to my laptop. And basically what it does, it has a built-in DHCP. It's a small DHCP. Whatever device is connected to the modem router through the wireless connection or the network connection, the DHCP will assign IP addresses to all devices connected, whatever your laptop or your mobile phone or your camera. So it does assign IP addresses, local IP addresses, to all the connected devices. So here it starts with 192.168.1.1, and from the beginning, any device which gets connected to the modem, it gets 192.168.1.2, and then 1.3, 1.4, and so on. So I guess my computer, as a connected, has an address which is 192. Let's check here. Right, as you can see, 192.168.1.2, and this is here. You can see the gateway. My gateway is 1.1, which is the modem. So my gateway is that. So I'm gonna configure the modem to have the port forwarding and the ddns config as we've seen previously. Okay. Okay, let's get to the config. So get to navigator and put 192.168.1.1 and ask me for the default username password, which is admin by default for dealing devices. Alright, so I have the basic config, which is basically I won't mess with since it's already configured, and I have two areas where I need to make some changes. I have the LAN setup, okay, and the ddns config. Okay, here we got 192.168.1.1, and here's the DHCP I told you about. It starts from the number 2 to 254, so it gives the, and this is the least time. You divide by number 3,600 seconds, you find it's probably about 12 hours. So my computer took the number 2, so whatever. Let's get to the advanced config and advanced LAN. I'm sorry, no, it's the DNS setup. DNS setup, and here we're gonna make our config what we did previously with the no IP config. Alright, okay, So this is the ddns config. I check the box. As I said, you can have a free from D-Link DNS service, dynamic DNS also, it's free, and we can, as I did, the server, which is my.noip.com. Okay, and my host name, what I did is youtuberg. Okay, the username youtuberg, password. Okay, so what it did is the modem will, each time it has a new IP address after getting connected to DSL, it will log on to this site and it will ask for this host name using this credential and change with update the server with the new IP address. So apply settings. Okay, we're done. So it's very easy. And now if I go back to the no IP, after a little bit of time I will probably find that the system is updating correctly. But before going there, we need to set up a second option, which is the port forwarding, as I explained previously here, to make sure the public address port will be forwarded directly to the camera. Okay, and now let's get to the port forwarding option, which is the second and the last option. Here we need to add no active port forwarding, which is here we add the private address with 192.168.1.3. basically the camera is at address number 1.3 because I have the 1.2, so the camera is the second device. Protocol type is all. We can choose the TCP or UDP. I just let it like it is. And here the public start port, end port, where we can have port forwarding with several ports. I'm gonna just make the port 80 because it's the port we use to access HTTP to the camera. Basically we have some other ports like 4583, but I'm gonna let with 80 and apply. What's gonna happen is that the system will forward all the requests to the public address with port 80 directly to the local IP address of the camera with the port 80, which means that anyone from outside with a remote user will see the camera as it has the public IP with port 80. Okay, so let's apply our notification. See here, okay, they have private address, all protocols, port 80 to 80, and this is the connection, the internet connection, the ESN. So I think we're done with the config of the modem. So let's get back to the new IP config. Make sure that the update is running and everything is okay. So as long as we have no dynamic updates recorded, which means that nothing is received from the modem or the computer. So as long as we have this option, nothing is working. So we need to get rid of this option, make sure the updates are working. And now let's save everything and log out from the modem. Make sure everything is connected from the modem to the camera, and check the system here. Okay, let's log out. Okay, there we are. And as I said, the option which says that the no dynamic updates are detected is gone, so which means that the updates to the system, and as you can check, I changed my connection. I get connected from another device, another DSL connection, and the IP address has been modified, so the updates are done correctly to this name. So whenever I want to get connected to my camera, I will use this name. Okay, hold on. I will use this name, and it will be automatically translated to the specific IP address. So if my camera is located at port 80, port 80 is by default, so I don't need to write 80. If it's 8080, I will need to make the ports 8080 to get connected to my camera and to see it from outside. So depending on your camera and the brand, every system has its own okay, so like I said, it's 8080 if you want, and for some cameras they use the RTSP instead of HTTP, which is the streaming port for camera to get directly the video. You can write RTSP, or you can keep the name and just put the port 554, which is by default the TCP port for the RTSP. But in this case, you will need to update your record and make sure that you need to access to this port instead of port 80. So that's all what you need to do. If you have any questions, don't hesitate for anything you need. Don't hesitate to send me your remarks. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.